Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Paramahamsa, Sri Bharata Chaitra Stotra Sipsa, Sri Srimad Bhagavatam Grace, Srila Bhai Charanardan Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki, ISKCON BBT, Founder Sharya Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki, Brahmacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki, Samavata Bhakta Vrinda Ki, Sri Nam Sankirtan Ki, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Dainik Thakur Ki, all that is to be some of the devotees, all that is to be some of the devotees, all that is to be some of the devotees, all that is to Sri Guru and to Sri Gauranga, all that is to Sri Prabhupada. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Daksharamritam Jena Tasmai Sri Padave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Jita Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakanvitam Nischa Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpati Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Sapta Kansana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanusuti Devi Pranamami Vipriye Vansakalpa Tirubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Jayabasha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Rojaya Mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nara Narayana Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayesa Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, which prays with transcendental songs, it becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Pranam Brahma Samitam Tamashloka Charitam Shakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreya Sailokasya Punyam Swasyayanam Maha. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all the literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Yadvaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 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 Om Surabhyaya Namaha 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 Ammukam karoti vakalam tvangum nadayate girim yadvipat mahabhande srikaram janataranam Yakripa Tamaham Bhunde Sri Garam Dinataram. Hare Krishna. Hare. Welcome to our morning Bhagavatam class. We are continuing from canto number 4, chapter 25. And today we're doing text number 30. Yad Esha Mapanga Vikanditandriyam Savidra Bhava Smita Vibramad Dhruva Prayopasvisto Bhagavan Mano Bhavaha Prabhadate Tanugrihana Shobhane Yadesha Mapanga Vikanditendriyam Yadesha Mapanga Vikanditendriyam Sabridda Bhava Smita Vibramad Dhruva Svayopasisto Bhagavan Mano Bhavaha Prabhadate Tanugrihana Shobhane Yadesha Mapanga Vikanditendriyam Sabridda Bhava Smita Vibramad Dhruva Ayopasvisto Bhagavan Mano Bhavaha Prabhadate Tanugrihana Shobhane Yadesha Mapanga Vikanditendriyam Sabridda Bhava Smita Vibramad Dhruva Svayopasvisto Bhagavan Mano Bhavaha Prabhadate Tanugrihana Shobhane
Yadesha Mapanga Vikanditendriyam Savrida Bhava Smita Vibramam Bhuva Svayopasristo Bhagavan Mano Bhava Prabhadate Tanugrihana Shobhane
Yadesha Mapanga Vikanditendriyam Sarira Bhava Smita Vibramad Dhruva Svayopasristo Bhagavan Mano Bhava Prabhadate Tanugrihana Shobhane Yadesha Mapanga Vikanditendriyam Savridda Bhava Smita Vibramad Dhruva Svayopasristo Bhagavan Mano Bhava Prabhadate Tanugrihana Shobhane Yat because Eshaha this Ma ni Apanga,
Apanga,
by your glances,
by your glances,
Vikandita,
Vikandita,
agitated,
agitated,
Indriyam,
Indriyam,
whose senses or mind,
whose senses are mine,
Savrida,
Savrida,
with shyness,
with shyness,
Bhava,
Bhava,
affection,
affection,
Smita,
Smita,
smiling,
smiling,
Vibhramat,
Vibramat,
bewildering,
bewildering,
Dhruva,
Dhruva,
with eyebrows,
with eyebrows,
Vaya,
Vaya,
by you,
by you,
Upasristaha,
Upasrishtaha,
being influenced,
being influenced,
Bhagavan,
Bhagavan,
the most powerful,
the most powerful,
Manabhavaha,
Manabhava,
Cupid,
Cupid,
Prabhadati,
Prabhadati,
is harassing,
is harassing,
Anta,
Anta,
therefore,
therefore,
Anugrihana,
Anugrihana,
be merciful,
be merciful,
Shobhane,
Sobhane,
O very beautiful one.
O very beautiful one.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Certainly, your glancing upon me today has very much agitated my mind. Your smile, which is full of shyness, but at the same time lusty, is agitating the most powerful Cupid within me. Therefore, O most beautiful, I ask you to be merciful upon me. Kindly repeat after me. Certainly, you're glancing upon me today.
Certainly your glancing upon me
Has very much agitated my mind.
has very much agitated my mind.
Your smile,
Your smile,
which is full of shyness,
which is full of shyness,
but at the same time lusty,
but at the same time lusty,
is agitating
is agitating
the most powerful Cupid
the most powerful Cupid
within me.
within me.
Therefore,
Therefore,
O most beautiful,
O most beautiful,
I ask you
I ask you
to be merciful upon me.
to be merciful upon me.
Purport. Everyone has lusty desires within, and as soon as one is agitated by the movement of a beautiful woman's eyebrows, the Cupid within immediately throws his arrow at the heart. Thus, one is quickly conquered by the eyebrows of a beautiful woman. When one is agitated by lusty desires, his senses are attracted by all in this way. The conditioned life of a living ends. Life means being under, and certainly is always at the mercy of a woman or a man. Thus, living entities live in bondage to one another, and thus they continue this conditional material life illusioned by Maya. Translation again. Certainly, your glancing upon me today has very much agitated my mind. Your smile, which is full of shyness, but at the same time lusty, is agitating the most powerful Cupid within me. Therefore, O most beautiful, I ask you to be merciful upon me. Though this continues series of verses in this chapter of the Bhagavatam. The topic of material attraction. These senses are very powerful, and everyone, all living entities in all species of life, actually, not only animal species, are conditioned very strongly conditioned actually by these senses, material mind. And this is being described here. It's not only the attraction of man to women, it's also the attraction of women to men. Men are also, women are also attracted to men. It's not a one-way matter. And Cupid, Balaram, is very powerful. And if one is on the bodily platform, this will be the constant attraction, actually, for that is the primary characteristic of what we call Buddha-ji, or conditioned soul, conditioned by lust, conditioned by lusty desires. Lust, we are reminded actually in the Vedic culture, in these teachings of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, lust is a extremely powerful agent. Why? Because it is a reflection of something original, which is also extremely powerful. Lust is known as kama in the Sanskrit language. Kama has to do with lusty desires, as is being described here. But lust is actually a reflection of what is original and pure, which is called actually, we have to use the Sanskrit word because the English word is not conveying the real meaning. The Sanskrit word actually for the original sentiment or feeling, or rasa is connected with rasa, is prema, which is translated, of course, as love. Love is what makes the world go round, as they say. No one actually can live without love. Everyone is looking for love. If one is not fortunate to know about the original love, the eternal love, the pure love, the unconditional love, then one will be forced, one by nature is forced to be attracted to the reflection of that love. And so Krishna's material creation, because Krishna is perfect and complete, so he has done a whole we can say he has created this material world perfectly, in that one can remain in that bubble of illusion, and most living entities, that is their, we call reality. That is their reality, because they're constantly uh, in this mentality of trying to enjoy and satisfy these material senses, um, through the eyes, through the ears, through the smell, taste, touch. These are these. This is the makeup of this material body, and this illusion is very, very strong. It is so strong that it's actually forcing all of us who are here in the material world to just be uh, running after this illusory um, pleasure that is manifest here in the material world. Um, and it is especially most vividly uh, experienced and expressed in this uh, natural attraction between male and female. Uh, of course, nowadays there's attraction between male and male and female and female. It's the same thing. It's another perversion. It's another reflection, uh, and people uh, are mad after. It's like it's something that it just cannot be avoided, because it's the nature of this material world, the nature of this material body, also. Just like uh, very interesting comparison that Prabhupada gives in one lecture when he describes about what is called Swarup Siddhi. Swarup Siddhi, the word Swarup means form, uh, uh, or identity, uh, and Siddhi means the perfect, uh, the perfection. Uh, so it means like our original form or our original identity. We all have on the spiritual transcendental platform Swarup Siddhi. So Prabhupada, he was explaining how this Swarup Siddhi actually um, is something that becomes known or revealed or manifest at a certain stage of development. And he gives a nice example directly connected with this topic here. He gives the example that in the same way that actually within a young boy and a young girl, when they're very young, they don't have the developed swarup siddhi of sex attraction. But at a certain stage, when one reaches the age of puberty, uh, age of around 12, 13, 14, when the body develops, the biological uh, development uh, produces at a certain stage sex attraction. It's not there in young boys and young girls, so they can play together, and it's like, no problem. But at a certain age, that's why in the Vedic culture that injunction is there, that young boys and young girls should not be together because they'll be naturally, that's the nature of the body. So Prabhupada uses that example because it's a vivid example. It's an example we can all relate to. Anyone who has already gone through the what we call the adolescent years. That's why the adolescent years in one's life are the most difficult, because the body is changing, our consciousness is changing, and naturally, um, unless we are uh, having proper understanding of what is taking place, then we become actually bewildered. I see the whole material world, uh, living entities in the material world are constantly bewildered because they're not really understanding what is taking place. So, therefore, the importance of knowing that actually uh, there's an original attraction, there's an original love, which is actually um, completely pure, and which is much more powerful, much more attractive uh, than the reflection. Just like the reflection of the body is not it's not the real thing. When we look in the mirror, uh, actually, when we look in the mirror, our left hand is our right hand, right? If you're chanting japa, all of a sudden, you're chanting japa with your left hand. If you look in the mirror, um, so it's a reflection. It's not the real thing. So this is the powerful energy, the manifestation of this powerful energy of Krishna. It's called the Prakriti, Bahir Anga Shakti. Uh, and therefore, uh, it's like one has no choice, really. So therefore, sometimes people ask, but people who are somewhat astonished that people practicing spiritual life can do without sex life, or can do without um, what most people are mainly absorbed in. Uh, different levels, different uh, yeah, different levels of activities of sense gratification. um, and people will give the argument that, well, you have senses, so you should enjoy your senses, isn't it? It seems logical, isn't it? You have sense, you have sex attraction, so why don't you just, uh, why you created that way? So therefore, what's the problem? So in philosophy, there is, if one doesn't take philosophy, one will not come to know this. Uh, in philosophy, it explains that uh, in French, it's l'homme est un animal raisonnable. It's a French lesson. L'homme est un animal raisonnable. L'homme means man or woman. You know, uh, l'homme est un animal. Animal means animal. It's the same word actually. Animal, animal. L'homme est un animal raisonnable. Raisonnable means endowed with reason, endowed with developed intelligence. Animals don't have developed intelligence. Animals cannot think. This is good, this is bad. They're on the platform of the pure, we call instinct, isn't it? Some food is there, I go for the food. Even though I'm rebuked many times, I cannot I cannot stop myself, isn't it? Uh, animals have a very strong, they can smell, or they can see, isn't it? Um, so, I mean, I forget which bird can see like 4 miles far away, something like that. Oh, possibly, yeah. Yeah, hawk from very high in the sky, probably. They see a small rat, running, they come down. Yeah. Uh, so, so this body and this material world is therefore this is all being very uh, elaborately described actually in this verse. We are forced to act in all of these ways, but this is the special feature of the human body, human form of life, is that we have the ability to reason. We have the ability to actually uh, regulate and control our senses, something that animals cannot do or other species, for a higher purpose, for the higher purpose of actually reconnecting with what is the original uh, experience. Everybody wants, people do all kinds of crazy things to get different kinds of experience, risking risking their lives. Like some people, they'll jump from very high, with a rope, all kinds of crazy things that people do to just get some kind of, feeling. People risk their lives actually because that attraction, that desire for experiencing is within everyone and very strong. So what we come to know, if we're fortunate to come in contact with this knowledge, these literatures, and people who are experiencing and living this higher, you can say, reality of life, which is actually of an eternal nature. Um, Therefore, we have the term Sanatan Dharma. Actually, the very word Dharma, very interesting word actually, means what is connected with our original nature, isn't it? Our this Swarup Siddhi has to do with our eternal uh, self, our eternal identity. And it's all very intimately connected, just like that we're seeing here. This Puranjana is attracted to this beautiful girl who's, with her eyebrows is agitating him. Um, so, if we are fortunate um, to develop this higher consciousness by coming in contact with this knowledge, by cultivating this knowledge, only then we can actually uh, become disinterested in the otherwise strong attraction of this material world. So the next verse actually we can read also is this. Oh, you have a question on it? Okay. Before we go to the next verse, there's a question.
So, between this love and lust.
Huh?
Between the love and lust.
Okay, the difference between love and lust.
My question is, here we are more into sense gratification, which is sense gratification.
Yeah,
here in the lust.
Lust is into sense gratification.
But in love, doesn't we have sense gratification in love?
Yes, but it's spiritual sense gratification. Material love or material lust? I'm talking
about spiritual love.
He's talking about spiritual love
and material lust. In the material lust, we say that sense gratification is bad. I mean, bad in the sense we are more entangled in the sense gratification in the lust. But in the spiritual love, that is not that person wants to also satisfy his senses.
No. In the spiritual realm, one wants to satisfy another person's senses. In the spiritual realm, one wants to satisfy one's only exclusive interest is to satisfy Krishna, is to satisfy Krishna's senses. And automatically one also is, one can only become fully satisfied by developing that consciousness. It's just like a servant. Uh, uh, a servant. So a servant actually is a very elevated position. A servant is someone whose his only interest, his only desire, his only ambition is to satisfy his master. Uh, Nowadays, you know, most people, because they want to be the master, they don't like the idea of being completely absorbed in somebody else because they're absorbed in themselves. That's the difference between lust and, between kama and prema. Kama is self-centered on his own self, his own sense gratification, and experiences some kind of happiness, material rasa. Whereas in prema, one experiences rasa, but of a different nature, because the consciousness is fully fixed on serving, on satisfying the beloved. You know, whereas in the material consciousness, we are it's self-centered, and if there is any obstruction, then we give up that relationship. That happens all the time in the material world. Whereas in the spiritual realm, even if our beloved does something that we remain unconditionally fixed. That's nicely expressed in the last prayer, Shikshastakam prayer. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly in his embrace. He may make me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He's completely free to do anything and everything, for he's always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. In the material realm, in the material love, material lust, conditions are there. In spiritual love, no condition is there, unconditional.
And this satisfying the spiritual senses, what does it mean, spiritual senses? I mean, satisfying them in the spiritual life.
Satisfying the spiritual senses means the more we become awakened to our spiritual identity, because these material senses are, isn't it, a reflection of the original senses. We have, just like Prabhupada explains, now, yeah, you have a kurta. You have a kurta. He has a shirt. That's a shirt. That's a kurta. So your kurta has two arms because you have two arms. It has the shape of two arms because you have two arms, isn't it? So this body is actually a reflection of the original self, which has senses. Our material senses are you could say an expression of our original senses. So everything that this body has is there spiritually. So that's why, you know, we refer to Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, uh, who appears in the material world to be like us. But as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, avajananti mam buddha, manusham tanuvasritam. People think that I'm ordinary human being, but I'm not. So our spiritual body, we actually are that spiritual body, but we're not awakened to that spiritual body. We're not awakened to our spiritual senses. But the more we actually associate with spiritual activities, the more we perform, gradually that awakening, that original spiritual self, the original spiritual senses become awakened.
So those spiritual senses are not like demanding like material senses. In the sense, they have a different quality, they have different way, different
Yes, it
spiritual matter difference like that.
it all has to do with developed consciousness, higher consciousness, where one is simply fixed on pleasing the Lord, on serving the Lord. Uh, One becomes pleased when um, the lover becomes pleased when the beloved is pleased. Is fully, completely focused on. Yeah. There are perverted examples of that in the material world, but the original reality is there on the spiritual realm, and the spiritual realm we can experience even within this material world, but um, it can be fully and eternally experienced when one returns to that abode. Just like we are now living in the material abode. Material abode means within this planet, which is one of innumerable planets in the material world. So in a similar way, these Bhagavatam, other Vedic literatures describe, isn't it, the spiritual abode, spiritual planets, and so many different activities. There are more planets in the spiritual um, realm, and of all of those planets, the central, most attractive of all those planets, because all of the different um, rasas or relationships, etc., are displayed, which is Goloka. That's why Goloka Vrindavan is the abode, the original abode of that supreme personality, Krishna, who has from whom all of these rasas actually. He's called Rasa Samudra. He is the ocean of transcendental mellows, and they are all exhibited, especially in the planet of Goloka. So that's why those who are Vaishnavas, those who are fortunate uh, uh, to have been introduced to this knowledge, to this understanding, to this realm. Uh, their aspiration is to return to that eternal abode of Goloka, and temples are meant to be a replica of that uh, abode, and communities of Vaishnavas who live, let's say, within this material realm, and who are more closely mm, um, living according to what is more natural, also in terms of the material world or the material energy, uh, material nature, Mother Nature. The more we are living in harmony with that realm, then we more easily can experience and understand the spiritual realm. So, in other words, there is a connection between the Krishna's external energy and his internal energy. It requires a certain, yeah, vision to see that or to understand.
So, in the material world, the attraction between male and female and the so-called love, which they say, is it only lust? Or you can call it or.
Yes, the natural attraction, bodily attraction, the sense attraction between male and female um, is because it is on the bodily platform, uh, is uh, known as or referred to as lust, uh, which is very different from what is existing on the spiritual realm, which is totally um, aimed at the uh, satisfaction and the benefit of the beloved, yes, unconditionally. And when one develops that kind of understanding, that level of consciousness, then then one is no longer attracted, or one is no longer disturbed by all of the ongoings of the material world. More and more people, actually, even who are not devotees in the material world, uh, um, beginning to speak about levels of consciousness. They call it level 4, level 5. They have, it's interesting. It started actually, well, especially maybe during the, what do they call it? Uh, uh, hmm, maybe around the, during those years where there was a lot of, you know, an attempt for a change of consciousness or to develop higher consciousness. Yeah, the age of the hippie days were very much uh, centered on that, because by nature we want to have uh, higher experience, etc., like that. But when it's performed only on the bodily or material level, it never really satisfies. Uh, yeah. So in those, the expression in those days was New Age movement. The New Age movement, which was the days of the hippies and drugs and psychedelics, intoxication, etc. Um, when somebody gets drunk, he gets into another realm. You know, but so in those days, actually, devotees, because many devotees were part of that culture. So the devotees, those who from that culture in the very early days became devotees, then they would print literatures to attract people to come to their different programs. Either for the Sunday feast, or they would like have some big festival in some public place, and they would print papers like it's there, I think, in the Prabhupada Lilamrita. um, Come and experience Krishna consciousness, and they would call it, get high and stay high forever. High means, a higher consciousness. So if we're not, people who are generally very positive, people who are generally very enthusiastic, uh, they are in that higher consciousness. But most people are caught up within the material realm. One can develop some higher consciousness, but that always has limits and is not fully satisfying. Whereas on the spiritual level, because it has to do with our real inner self, which is the the soul self, we can say, then one can experience unlimited increased consciousness, uh, which continues actually even after we leave this body. Whereas uh, whatever level of material consciousness we may develop, that ends with the end of this body. Okay. Anything else?
Yes.
So yeah, we won't go to our next verse. We'll go to our next verse tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Jai Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Miscellaneous Bhakti Raghava Swami